During the D-Day invasion of 1944, vital low-level reconnaissance of the Normandy beaches fell under Major General Pete Quesada's command. These extremely hazardous missions had to be flown at altitudes of just 15 to 20 feet into heavy German defenses. Doubts and gripes abounded among the pilots, until, that is, Quesada personally met with his flyers. With a gift for igniting a pilot's killer instinct, it wasn't long before Quesada's men refused practice sessions and diversionary tactics. "We're ready to go now," the energized fighter pilots told their commander. "Just tell us what you want, and we'll make sure you get it." Elwood Ricardo Pete Quesada was born on April 13, 1904 in Washington, D.C. to Lope Lopez Quesada and Helen A. McNamara. High school was spent at Wyoming Seminary in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Quesada then attended the University of Maryland and Georgetown University before leaving college to enlist in the Air Service in 1924. In 1927, he earned his commission as a second lieutenant, his first assignment as engineering officer at Bowling Field, Washington, D.C. He was part of the five-man crew, including Major Carl Spatz and Captain Ira Aker, to answer the question, how long can an aircraft stay airborne? On New Year's Day, 1929, flying a Fokker C-2A tri-motor dubbed the Question Mark, the crew lifted off from Van Nuys, California, to find out. Only 150 hours later, after 43 air-to-air exchanges and 11,000 miles of flight, did the transport and record-setting crew return to Van Nuys. Quesada and his crewmates were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. A wide variety of assignments followed, among them flying as an airmail pilot and serving 2.5 years as an advisor to Argentina's Air Force. A year at the Army Command and General Staff School prior to World War II convinced Quesada that, quote, "Future war will require all sorts of arrangements between the air and the ground, and the two will have to work closer than a lot of people think or want," end of quote. In July 1941, Major Quesada was assigned commanding officer of the 33rd Pursuit Group at Mitchell Field in New York. With the United States' involvement in World War II, Pete's duties and rank advanced rapidly. After a stint at Lieutenant General Arnold's headquarters in command of a fighter group, Quesada, promoted to Brigadier General, subsequently set up the 1st Air Defense Wing, deploying to North Africa soon after. By early 1943, he commanded the 12th Fighter Command and was Deputy Commanding General of the Northwest African Coastal Air Force in the Mediterranean. Quesada immersed himself in the new technologies such as radar and radio communications and flew operational flights in the Tunisian, Sicilian, Corsican, and Italian campaigns. By the fall of 1943, Quesada was called to England by 8th Air Force Commander Major General Aker. There, Quesada was appointed the new commanding general of the 9th Fighter Command and the 9th Tactical Air Command. Both leaders knew the new flexible tactics of close air support would play an integral role in the upcoming invasion. In the run-up to D-Day, June 6, 1944, Quesada put his command through rigorous training in low-level armed reconnaissance, train and tank busting, and dive bombing. By D-Day +1, the 40-year-old general was directing the 1,500 aircraft under his command from his advance headquarters on an airstrip carved out just above Utah Beach. New tactics included placing pilots in front-line tanks as forward air controllers equipped with VHF radios and using microwave early warning radar to vector fighter bombers in real time to their targets. Quesada's leadership of the 9th Air Force was credited by many Army commanders as being a key to the Allies' victory on the Western Front. And by war's end, Quesada, by then known as the Pilot's General, had himself flown 90 combat missions. Post-war, Quesada was promoted to Lieutenant General in March of 1946, and in 1947 was appointed as the first commander of the Tactical Air Command in the newly independent U.S. Air Force. In October 1946, Quesada gave up his bachelor status, marrying Kate Davis Pulitzer Putnam, a war widow with 2 young daughters. The couple eventually had 2 sons, Thomas Ricardo and Peter Wickham. Subsequent assignments after leaving TAC included Special Assistant for Reserve Forces at the Air Force Headquarters, Chairman of the Joint Technical Planning Committee of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Commanding General of Joint Task Force 3. After 27 years of service to his country, Lieutenant General Quesada retired from the Air Force on October 31st, 1951. He then held a variety of positions in private industry before President Eisenhower recruited Quesada to become his special assistant for aviation matters and soon chairman of the Airways Modernization Board. There he worked to organize the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. And when on November 1st, 1958, the FAA was launched, Quesada was its first administrator, serving until January 1961. In the years after his work for the FAA, Quesada was co-owner of the Washington Senators baseball team and chairman and CEO of L'Enfant Plaza Properties in Washington. He passed away on February 9, 1993, at age 88. In recognition of his contributions to military air power and to advancing the safety of aviation in service to his country, Lieutenant General Elwood Pete Quesada is enshrined in the National Aviation Hall of Fame.